Yo, Still Bills, what's the deal, man? I'm fresh off the clockage, man. I'm heading to run some errands before I go pick up my daughter up and go home and kick my feet up before I get out there and cut my grass, man. But keep game, man. We want to talk. We gotta circle back, circle back around to, Dante's Boxing Nation, man. And once again, he hit on some points that actually did make sense. He did, he spoke on some shit that did come into fruition. Like when I talked about him a couple weeks ago, I wasn't 150% standoffish with him because I think he made some really valid points as it pertains to us, man. But one thing that I don't like how it's kind of like he's kind of dictating a certain energy, like, oh well, because I don't like you because how they perceive you. Like, oh well, Bam is the mid-year fighter of the year and Shakur didn't even get a nomination. Now granted, I don't think Bam Rodriguez should be mentioned in that when you've had Jermell Charlo and Devin Haney go undisputed in just this year. I think there were bigger fights, better performances in the sense of like with Bivol and Canelo. Bivol should have been mentioned. I think Devin Haney or Jermell Charlo should have definitely been fighters who were. It should have been out of those two fighters who have been the midway fighter of the year thus far, and even Shakur Stevenson having his victory over Oscar, the undefeated 2-division world champion Oscar Valdez, and him becoming unified. I think that that right there, I think that was a bigger deal. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, I think when you fight a fighter like for Bam Rodriguez to beat the Rat King, I think this is where shit gets convoluted when you start talking about undefeated and he was undefeated and yada yada yada. George Kambosos beating Teofimo Lopez does not equate to the Rat King knocking Chocolatito the fuck out and beating him in the previous fight. I don't think the two are compatible whatsoever, man. So he may have losses on his resume. Yeah, I'm not mad at none of that, man. But that win reigns supreme over a George Kambosos. I just think a George Kambosos fight was a little bit more meaningful because of what was at stake. You dig? I mean, even I dare say Inoue stopping Nonito Donaire was a better win than the Rat King. So I'm not clapping at him at all. Like I'm not clapping at the Rat King at all, or Bam beating the Rat King. I'm honestly not. I'm just saying that I just think there were bigger fights that were a bit more monumental than that fight right there. So on one hand, I get what it is that he was saying. I get it. I understand. But on another hand, I don't like how it seems like he's trying to pit them against one another. Like he's so in his feelings that Shakur Stevenson, damn, my forehead is huge. But I don't like how it's like he's trying to pit Shakur Stevenson against Bam Rodriguez because like he's chastising him for being a fan of Bam Rodriguez as if he's not supposed to be a fan of Bam Rodriguez. That's what I don't like. It's one of them, see what happens, you go and fuck with and now what? You a fan of them and look at how they doing you. Pretty much, man, fuck them niggas. Like you should hate them because of how ESPN is gonna possibly rank you. Like, and I just think that's utterly ridiculous, man. And he said, I'm not saying that they should hate, I'm just saying that it should be how you feel about Bam. Bam should feel that way about you. You dig? Like, and I'm just like, that shit is because he's older. And I think that, like I said before, that goes back into the petty shit once again, man. The petty, you can't teach me nothing. You a little nigga, you a youngin', you can't, it's nothing that you can teach me that, like, nah, that shit is whack. That shit is whack. The youth is always going to be you're going to look to the youth because that, when you, 9 times out of 10, when you retire, that's going to be the individual to continue the sport. You know what I'm saying? So you can't sit here and be like, I'm older than you, so I have this superiority complex over you, and I'm rightful to that because I'm older than you. Like, nah, older doesn't equate to better. Older doesn't equate to wiser. So that's what I really dislike about this whole situation. because it's not him being like, it's him pitting him against Bam, him trying to pit him against Bam because Bam was rated higher on the ESPN rankings or whatever as far as fighter of the year, midway fighter of the year. That's what I don't like. I do not like that. I get the sentiment while you're pouring, you know, you're so, and I don't even think it's an investment. I don't think he's so invested in him to the point where it's like, yo, I'll fuck everybody else. I'm about Bam Rodriguez. I don't think it's about that. He's just an you know, he admires his style of boxing, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with him being a fan of Tyson Fury. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see nothing wrong with that. We have our own, absolutely we do, but that doesn't necessarily mean like oh, I'm not gonna like him because he's not black. I think that shit is I understand the sentiment, but it can come off as immature. And in this situation, it's coming off as immature. You dig me? Bam Rodriguez is a hell of a fighter and a future pound for pound star in the sport. You can't sit here and denigrate him for being a fan of him. You can't do that. And if you do, it's just really childish. It's really childish. And you keep harping on it. That's very immature for you to, oh man, see how because ESPN ranks Bam higher than you, that means you shouldn't be a fan of Bam. That should offend you. And honestly, you know, he should have a problem with it, but that's not Bam's issue. That's an ESPN issue. My grievance is with ESPN, not Bam. I've never heard Bud denigrate Lomachenko because of how ESPN ranked Lomachenko, and Lomachenko is saying all the praises for Bud. It's shit like this when you're a content creator. This is why I say you got to be very mindful about what it is that the content that you pump out there, because you're gonna activate your followers, your legion of followers to follow, you know, to adopt that ideology that you have, to where you can't be appreciative of an individual if they are not of the same ethnic group as you. And I just think it's rather ridiculous. You can be for your own but still be like, that's a bad motherfucker right there. You can be for your own and say he's not gonna be him. It's just not gonna happen. So I don't like that, man. I don't like that, man. You kind of trying to, you know, pit one side against the other. Pit, you know, Shakur Stevenson against Bam on some fucking, what's that nigga name, off of Belly, Buns. Like, you acting like Buns off of Belly. When them niggas was in the restaurant, they got the barking on each other and he instigated that whole shit. That shit ain't cool for no, you know, you a little too old for that shit, man. And it's deception. You're being very much so deceptive with it. Like, it's kind of like you want Shakur Stevenson to come out with more detracting remarks than admirable remarks about Bam Rodriguez. You want to say he's a good fighter, but he this and that and the third, and run down a list of cons as opposed to the pros. Like, I think that will put a smile on your face. And that shit just ain't cool. It's not cool, bro. It's really not cool. As I stated before, you hit on some good points. I do believe you should be for your own. I do think I'm in 100% agreement with you as far as Shakur Stevenson wanting to get on Paulie Malignaggi's podcast. I think we need to hold Paulie Malignaggi accountable for all of the things that he has said as it pertains to black fighters. I definitely believe that. I'm in agreement with that 150%. That man needs to be reprimanded for that, man. Nobody should be going on his podcast. And I was a fan of Paulie Malignaggi as a commentator. I thought he was an incredible commentator, man. But when he started making those disparaging remarks about black fighters and the George Floyd shit, I drew my line in the sand. I can't fuck with you anymore. I'm not listening to your podcast, and I think you are very informative in your breakdowns on boxing. I just won't be informed by it because I'm not gonna look to. I'm not. I can't allow you to disrespect us like that. That was wild disrespectful. So I agree with you on that. man. But when you get to a point where it's kind of like you're trying to pit him against when you pit Bam, you're trying to pit Shakur Stevenson against Bam because you don't like that he's at, he admires Bam's style of fighting. That's where I have a problem with that. These is youngins, man. These is young men. You want to be able to groom these young men into, you know what I'm saying, into wise men. People who they think with their heads, you dig, not their hearts. And this just kind of seems really, it's deceptive. It's instigating. It's it's just kind of a deplorable thing to do, man. Shakur's supposed to hate Bam because ESPN has Bam ranked higher or is rewarding him the fighter of the year. I just think that shit is ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous, man. You would sit there, oh no, man, look at how they doing shit. No, we can disagree with it because I don't think beating the Rat King, I don't think that usurps certain fights. I don't think the Rat King, I think, is a better win than George Kambosos as far as Devin Haney is concerned, but I think the ambiance behind the Haney and Kambosos fight usurps beating the Rat King because it was for an undisputed match, like I said earlier. But the Rat King was a damn good win. It was a damn good win. A damn good win. He's still one of the four kings in that division at 118, man. Like, you can't sit here and tell me that wasn't a good win. Man, y'all need to really be mindful of what y'all put out there into the universe, the content that y'all put out there, man, because niggas is gonna hear that shit, and like I said, y'all have a legion of followers who aren't necessarily capable of thinking for themselves at this point in time because they're still new to the sport. So they're incapable of formulating their own ideologies because they're very much so unlearned to the sport. They have a lot of growing to do. They have a lot to unpack before they can start saying, oh, okay, so connecting the dots and coming up with their own ideologies. You gotta be a dude who can call shit down the middle, man. Otherwise, conversations like this get convoluted with other shit outside of boxing. And that's what a lot of y'all cats have been doing. It's not, boxing is kind of secondary. And I'm not mad at y'all for doing that. I just think y'all have to know what capacity to use that shit in. And this definitely isn't one. Trying to pit one dude against another on account of what ESPN did is very dastardly, man. And it's just not cool. And for a nigga who's supposed to be an OG, you should know better. You should know better, because this is shit right here. Like, this is creating a breeding ground to where they can say something about one another and that can trigger a negative response. It can trigger a negative response. Beefs get started off of doing shit like this. I don't know if y'all niggas have been around some real niggas, man, but the little shit like this, all it takes is a spark. And here we go on to some other shit, man. That's what I'm saying. Y'all gotta, it's not cool. Do not sit there and denigrate that man and look for reasons why he shouldn't be why he shouldn't admire the boxing skill of an incredible boxer. Don't do that. Man, that's pretty much all I gotta say about it, man. Shout out Bam, shout out Shakur, shout out Jermel, shout out Devin Haney, man. And I'm on to the next one. Deuces.